I never said the number out loud, not to my parents, not to friends, not even to my daughter. I kept it folded inside me like a quiet promise, something sacred enough to protect by silence. For 17 years, every extra shift, every holiday I worked while others stayed home, every moment I chose exhaustion over ease went into one place, not a dream, not a fantasy, a plan. My daughter June's college fund. I checked the account that morning without fear. I checked it with pride. This is an original story written by the author of the Revenge Sins channel, built from familiar social issues with the purpose of helping viewers reflect, heal, and draw meaningful lessons. The content is not intended to depict any real individual. June was still asleep when I opened the banking app. She had stayed up late the night before, comparing dorm photos, circling meal plans, talking too fast in that way she did when hope was getting bigger than her fear. "I don't need anything fancy," she'd said, leaning against the kitchen counter. "I just want to know I can go." "You can," I told her. I didn't hesitate. I never had. That was the truth I had earned. The number was there, exactly where it had been the last time I checked. $247,600, 17 years of discipline, 17 years of choosing long-term safety over short-term comfort. I locked my phone and sat there for a moment, letting the feeling settle. Relief, pride, a kind of quiet victory no one applauds because no one sees it. If you've ever built something slowly, patiently, without witnesses, you know that feeling. And if this kind of story matters to you, stay with me. Not because it's shocking, but because it's honest. The only reason I checked the account again was routine. I was transferring money to cover campus visits, airfare, hotel rooms. Small things compared to what was already set aside. The screen refreshed. I blinked. The balance didn't change. It vanished. I refreshed again. Same result. 0. Not low. Not pending. Empty. I scrolled down, my thumb suddenly unsteady. 3 withdrawals stared back at me, lined up neatly, almost politely. $82,000, $54,000, $91,600, all gone, all authorized. My name wasn't on the transactions. My mother's was. For a few seconds, my mind refused to cooperate. It tried to turn this into a mistake, a glitch, a delay, anything but what it was. I whispered, "No," not as a plea, but as a correction, as if reality might listen. June stirred in her room, the floorboard creaking softly. I locked my phone again, slower this time, like if I moved carefully enough, nothing else would break. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I picked up my keys, and as I walked out the door, one thought cut through the fog, sharp and unmistakable. This wasn't an accident. The joint account was supposed to be temporary. That was the word my mother used when we opened it, back when June was a baby and I was barely sleeping. "Just until you're on your feet," she'd said, sliding the papers across the table. "This way, if something happens to you, I can step in. Protect the money. Protect her." At 19, exhausted and scared, I believed her. Years passed. Then more years. The account faded into the background of my life. Something old and unimportant. A relic from a time when I needed help. Most of the money moved elsewhere as I got smarter. More careful. High-yield savings. Accounts only I could touch. That joint account became a side road I stopped checking, not because I forgot it existed, but because I trusted the person on the other end of it. Trust has a way of aging badly. By the time I pulled into my parents' driveway, my hands were steady. My heart wasn't. I walked inside without knocking. My mother, Dorothy, was at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, scrolling on her phone like it was any other morning. She looked up and smiled. "You look tired. Did you take money from the joint account I asked?" She didn't ask which one. She didn't pretend she didn't understand. Yes, she said, calm, certain. I did. How much? My voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. All of it that was still sitting there. That was June's college fund. She waved a hand. It was family money. I leaned forward. You knew exactly what that money was for. She met my eyes, unbothered. And I knew it wasn't being used. Megan needed it now. Megan needed a wedding. I said, June needs an education. My mother's mouth tightened. You always talk like those things are equal. They are not equal, I said. One lasts a weekend, the other lasts a lifetime. She stood up, her chair scraping the floor. You raised your daughter to leave this family. I raised mine to stay. The words landed harder than the numbers ever could. I trusted you, I said. She sighed, like I was being difficult. You trusted me because I've always handled things. And I handled this by taking $227,600 without asking. I didn't ask because you would have said no. That's because it wasn't yours. Her eyes hardened. You're being dramatic. I'm being clear. She picked up her coffee and turned away. This conversation is over. I stood there, the truth finally settling into place. That account had never been forgotten. It had been waiting. I didn't leave right away. I stood there while my mother turned her back on me, while the coffee machine hissed and clicked like it always had, while the house held its breath the way it did when something ugly had just been said. I needed to hear it again, from her mouth, without the filter of shock. You took all of it, I said, not a portion, not alone, everything. She faced me again, impatience flashing across her face. I took what was available. There were 3 withdrawals, I said, not one. Her eyes flicked, just for a second. Enough. So you checked the details, she said. Good. Then you know it wasn't reckless. $82,000, I said. Then $54,000. Then $91,600. You spaced it out. She crossed her arms. Large payments require planning. For a wedding, I said, not for a future. She smiled, thin and tired. You're being emotional. That money was set aside for June, and June will figure it out, she said. You always do. That sentence hurt more than anything else. The assumption, the confidence that I would absorb the damage quietly, like I always had. My father, Harold, stepped into the doorway then. He looked smaller than I remembered. His shoulders curved inward like he'd been folding himself out of arguments for years. What's going on? He asked, though his eyes told me he already knew. She's upset about the account, my mother said lightly. I turned to him. Did you know? He hesitated. Just long enough. I knew your mother was helping Megan with the wedding. He said, I didn't know how much. You knew it came from me. He swallowed. I didn't ask. Why not? He looked at the floor. Because every time I ask, it turns into a fight. And nothing changes. My mother nodded. See, he understands. I felt something inside me settle, cold and clear. So this wasn't a mistake. This was a decision you both let happen. Harold shook his head. I didn't sign anything. You didn't stop it, I said. Silence stretched between us. My mother broke it with a sigh. You're acting like this was theft, she said. It was redistribution. I laughed once, sharp and ugly. You stole my daughter's college fund to pay for flowers and a band, for a family event, she corrected. At Lake Geneva. Something beautiful. Am I invited? I asked. She didn't answer right away. That was answer enough. I didn't think it would be comfortable, she said finally. You tend to bring tension. In June. Her lips pressed together. Children don't belong at weddings like that. I stared at her. She's 17. And sensitive, she said. I didn't want her asking questions. That was when it clicked. Not just the money, the timing, the secrecy. You didn't want us there because you didn't want us to know, I said. My mother's voice dropped. What you don't know can't ruin things. For who I asked? For this family, she said firmly. I stepped back, the room suddenly too small. You don't get to decide what family means by erasing my child. She looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. You always make things bigger than they need to be. I picked up my bag. You made this bigger the moment you touched that money. As I reached the door, she added, almost casually, You'll calm down. You always do. I didn't turn around, because for the first time, I knew she was wrong. My father called an hour later. I almost didn't answer, not because I didn't care, but because I already knew what he was going to say. Still, when his name lit up my phone, I took a breath and picked up. Beth, he said quietly. Your mother didn't mean for it to come out like that. That's not what I asked. I replied. There was a pause. I could hear him shifting, the familiar sound of someone choosing caution over truth. She thought you'd understand. He said, I understand perfectly. I said, I just don't accept it. She's under a lot of pressure. He continued, Megan's wedding got expensive fast. Deposits, vendors, the venue at Lake Geneva. Your mother panicked. She didn't panic. I said. She planned. Another pause. Longer this time. She said the money was just sitting there. He admitted. That you weren't using it yet. That money wasn't waiting to be used. I said. It was already doing its job. He exhaled, shaky. You know how your mother is. She takes responsibility for everything. She takes control. I corrected. There's a difference. He didn't argue. That told me more than any confession. I should have asked more questions. He said, I just didn't want another fight. I closed my eyes. Dad, when you stay quiet to keep the peace, you're not neutral. You're choosing her. That's not fair, he said quickly. I lost $227,600. I said, June lost her future. Fair stopped being part of this conversation a while ago. His voice softened. What are you going to do? I thought of my mother's face, calm and unmoved, of the way she'd said I always calm down. I'm not doing what she expects. I said, that will tear the family apart. He warned. I swallowed. The family didn't break today. It just showed me where the cracks have always been. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, almost too quietly, he said, Your mother believes she keeps this family together. I know, I replied. That's why she thinks she's allowed to decide who gets sacrificed. He didn't have an answer for that. When the call ended, I sat alone with the weight of it, not just the money, the pattern, the way my needs had always been postponed because I could handle it, the way June's future had been treated like something flexible, negotiable. I didn't feel shocked anymore. I felt awake. And once you see a system for what it is, you can't pretend it's love again. I went back 2 days later, not because I expected an apology, but because I needed to hear the truth without interruptions. The kind of truth people only say when they believe they still hold the power. My mother was in the living room, folding place cards for the wedding. Each name was written carefully, evenly spaced, like order itself could be enforced through paper. You came back, she said without looking up. I'm not here to fight, I replied. I'm here to understand how you justified it. She set the cards down and finally faced me. I justified it the same way I've justified everything in this family, by doing what needed to be done. For Megan, I said. For the family, she corrected. I stepped closer. Say it again. Slowly. She didn't hesitate. You raised children to leave. I raised Megan to stay. The words landed clean and sharp, like she'd rehearsed them. So that's it, I said. That's how you measure worth. She crossed her legs. Composed. I measure loyalty. June didn't do anything disloyal. She applied to schools out of state, my mother said. She talks about moving away like it's a reward. It is a reward, I said, for working hard, for abandoning the people who raised her. She shot back. I felt my voice steady instead of shaking. You didn't take the money because Megan needed it. You took it because you didn't want June to leave. She smiled, almost kindly. You finally understand. You stole $227,600 to keep control, I said. I redistributed resources, she said. Something you've never had the stomach for. You didn't even invite us, I said. You erased us. She waved a hand. It would have been uncomfortable. People would ask questions. About the money. About your attitude, she snapped. You always think you're better than us because you plan for the future. I took a breath. I plan so my daughter doesn't have to ask a permission to live. Her expression hardened. That kind of thinking breaks families. No, I said. It exposes them. She stood, stepping closer now, lowering her voice. If you push this, you'll lose more than money. Your father will be stuck in the middle. Megan will never forgive you. People will talk. I know, I said. She studied me, searching for the hesitation she'd always relied on. You think you're protecting your daughter, she said, but all you're teaching her is how to walk away. I'm teaching her how to stand. I replied. Her jaw tightened. You're making a mistake. I nodded once. I made a mistake when I trusted you with anything that mattered. She turned away from me then, picking up the place cards again, stacking names that no longer included mine. As I walked out, I understood something with painful clarity. My mother didn't see herself as cruel. She saw herself as necessary, and that made her more dangerous than I'd ever allowed myself to admit. June was at the kitchen table when I got home, her laptop open. Brochures spread out like she was mapping a future with paper and hope. She looked up when I set my keys down. Did you talk to Grandma? She asked. I sat across from her. I didn't soften my voice. I didn't delay. I had learned what delay costs. Yes, I said. We need to talk. She closed the laptop slowly. Okay. I folded my hands together so she wouldn't see them shake. The money I saved for your college. The account. Grandma took it. Her face went still. Not confused, not disbelieving. Still. All of it, she asked. Almost all. I said. $227,600. She nodded once, like she was filing the number away. For Aunt Megan's wedding? Yes, she swallowed. She didn't tell me. She didn't want you to know. June looked down at the table. I thought she just didn't like talking about school stuff. She knew what that money meant, I said. She just decided something else mattered more. June pressed her lips together. She always said staying close to family was more important than leaving. I met her eyes. And what do you think? She hesitated, then said quietly. I think she likes the people who stay because they're easier to keep. The words landed heavier than any accusation I could have made. I'm going to fight this, I said. Legally. It might get ugly. She took a breath. People are going to say things. I know. They'll say you're dramatic, she continued. They'll say I should just take loans. I won't let that be the lesson you learn, I said. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her grip was tight. I didn't think she'd sell my future for a weekend. My chest tightened, but my voice held. She doesn't get to decide what you're worth. June nodded, blinking hard. Even if we don't get it all back, I still want to go. I don't want to stay just to make someone comfortable. I squeezed her hand. You won't have to. She sat back, straighter than before. Then do what you have to do. I looked at my daughter and saw something shift between us. Not fear, not anger, alignment. And once we were aligned, there was no version of this where I backed down. The lawyer's office was quiet in the way places are when people expect bad news. Her name was Rachel Boone. She didn't rush me. She didn't interrupt. She let the story land exactly where it needed to. When I finished, she folded her hands. Legally. She said, "Your mother had access to that account." I nodded. "I already know that part. But access doesn't erase intent," she continued, "and it doesn't erase documentation." I slid the folder across the desk. Statements, transfer records, notes I'd kept over the years. She flipped through them slowly. "You funded this almost entirely yourself," she said, "and you can show it was always intended for your daughter's education." "Yes." She looked up. "If you proceed, this will not stay private. I'm aware." "Your family will choose sides," she added. "Some will stop speaking to you. They already have." I said. She considered me for a moment. "Your mother will claim you're attacking her reputation." "I'm correcting it," I replied. Rachel exhaled softly. The first step would be a formal demand letter. It puts her on notice. It gives her a chance to respond before we file. And if she doesn't, then we file. I thought of my father, caught in the middle, of Megan, protected at all costs, of June, quietly choosing courage. "Send it," I said. On the drive home, my phone buzzed, my father's name again. "I heard you met with a lawyer," he said without greeting. I did. "This is getting serious," he warned. "Your mother is furious." "She should be," I said. "She's saying you're tearing the family apart over money. I'm holding her accountable for stealing from her granddaughter." He sighed. "People won't see it that way." "I'm not doing this for people," I said. There was a long silence. Then, softer. "She says you always think you're right. I think June deserves what was promised to her." I replied, "That's not arrogance. That's responsibility." He didn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded older. "If this goes forward, I won't be able to protect you from her. I don't need protection," I said. "I need honesty." After we hung up, my phone lit up again. A message from my mother. "You are humiliating this family. If you take this any further, don't expect forgiveness." I stared at the screen, then typed back, "I didn't take anything from you. I'm asking you to return what never belonged to you." The reply came almost instantly. "You'll regret this." I set the phone down and felt something strange settle in my chest. Not fear, not doubt, clarity. Silence had been expensive. I had paid for it with years of compliance, with my daughter's security. I wasn't paying that price again. I arrived at the venue with June beside me and the folder tucked under my arm. Thin but heavy with meaning. No one stopped us. No one announced us. We were simply there, unnoticed at first, which felt appropriate after everything. My mother was already moving through the room like a hostess who owned the air itself. She laughed too loudly, accepted compliments with practiced humility, and spoke about the wedding as if it were proof of her devotion. Every detail mattered. She said to a group near the bar, "I wanted it done right." June stiffened beside me. I placed a hand on her back, steadying both of us. We didn't sit near the front. We didn't hide either. When my mother finally saw us, her smile faltered, then reset. "You shouldn't be here," she said when she reached us. Her voice was low, controlled. "I know," I replied. "I won't stay long." Megan stood a few steps behind her, dress perfect, expression unsure. Her husband, Cole Ramirez, hovered close, his attention shifting between us. "What's going on?" Megan asked. I opened the folder and handed it to her. "These are the bank records, the withdrawals, the vendor payments, all tied to the joint account you knew about." Her hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. "Mom," Dorothy's voice sharpened. "This is not the time. It is," I said, "because this is when everyone believes the story you've been telling." Cole stepped closer, scanning the papers. "You paid the venue with this account?" "Yes," my mother said. "It was available." "It was Bethany's money," he said slowly. "For June." My mother's chin lifted. "It was family money." Harold appeared then, drawn by the tension. His eyes moved from the folder to my face. "I told you this would happen," I said quietly. He looked down. "I didn't think you'd bring it here. I didn't bring a scene," I replied. "I brought the truth." Megan's voice cracked. "You told me Bethany agreed." Dorothy turned on her. "I told you what you needed to know." Cole closed the folder and handed it back to me. "Some of these vendors are still unpaid. That will be handled," Dorothy snapped. "By who?" he asked. "Because if this money was misrepresented, that affects me too." My mother looked around then, realizing how many eyes were on us, not listening, but watching. I leaned in, close enough that only she could hear me. "I'm filing tomorrow. This is your notice." Her breath caught. "You wouldn't dare." "I already did." I said, "The demand letter went out this morning." She stared at me, searching for the hesitation she'd always relied on. It wasn't there. June spoke then, her voice steady. "I didn't come to ruin anything. I came to see what mattered more to you." My mother said nothing. We left the folder with Megan and Cole and walked out together. No shouting followed us. No one tried to stop us. The music continued behind us, but it sounded distant, hollow. Outside, June let out a breath she'd been holding. "That was enough," she said. "Yes," I replied. It was behind us. The celebration went on, but something essential had shifted. The story my mother told about herself no longer held, and for the first time, I felt the balance of power move quietly, decisively out of her hands and into mine. The settlement meeting lasted less than an hour. Rachel sat beside me, calm and precise. My mother sat across the table, stiff, her hands folded so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. She looked smaller than I remembered, not because she'd lost confidence, but because confidence no longer protected her. "This isn't an admission of wrongdoing," my mother said for the third time. Rachel didn't flinch. "It's a repayment of funds taken from an account primarily funded by Bethany for her daughter's education." Silence followed. Then my mother said quietly, "I built this family. I met her eyes. You controlled it." Her mouth tightened, but she didn't argue. The agreement was read aloud. $183,000 returned over time. Assets liquidated. A loan taken in her name alone. The money to be placed into a new account with one signature mine and June listed as the sole beneficiary. "No joint access," Rachel said. "No exceptions." My mother nodded once. That was all she had left. When it was over, my father lingered in the hallway. "I should have said something sooner," he said. "You can say it now," I replied. He looked at June, standing beside me. "I'm sorry." She nodded. "Thank you for saying it." That was all she offered him. It was enough. The first payment came through 2 weeks later. I logged into the new account alone. No shared names, no old permissions, just a clean screen and a number that meant possibility instead of fear. June stood behind me, watching. "It's real," she said softly. "Yes," I replied. "It is." A month later, we sat on the steps outside her orientation building in Ann Arbor, sharing takeout from a cardboard box balanced between us. Students passed by, laughing, complaining, planning, life moving forward without apology. "I used to think keeping the peace was the same thing as being kind," June said. "So did I." She looked at me. "But peace that costs someone their future isn't peace." I reached for her hand. It's silence. She squeezed back. "I'm glad you broke it. If you're listening to this and it feels familiar if you've ever been told to stay quiet for the sake of family, don't turn away from that recognition. Stories like this are shared so none of us have to feel alone in it. My mother and I speak rarely now. Polite messages, no explanations, no rewriting what happened. She lost control. I lost an illusion. What she took back was money. What she didn't take was my voice. And what my daughter gained was something no account statement could ever show, the certainty that her future belongs to her.